On the eve of Book of Blood coming out on Lionsgate DVD, I think on the 26th, and with Dread coming out next March, it gives us great pleasure to actually introduce to you to Clive Barker. Well, let's kick this off with Dread and Book of Blood. Sure. I mean, you know, those books of blood just keep on giving. I mean, they're like 25 years old nearly now, and yet here we are, and you're still adapting them. Not you personally, but your
somebody else is, yeah.
So, I mean, did you ever expect them to have that amount of longevity, really?
No, and even now, it's, it's all, movies are weird, aren't they? I'm very proud of the movies that have been made from these pictures, particularly. I think Midnight Meat Train is a really superb. Ooh, I'm dripping. Lovely. Really superbly scary movie. Dread the same. There's a wonderful ghost story being told in Books of Blood, but we didn't get the theatrical releases that we wanted for them in America. And that is depressing and irritating. And so, at the same time as saying, yes, they keep on giving, in another sense, to be perfectly frank, the mood of the audience has moved. And it's not, the audience is actually watching, remakes of, well, you're more up to date than what the American audience is watching right now than I am, but what is the horror audience watching right now theatrically?
Halloween 2.
Halloween 2, right, and Hostel. And these are movies which, to me, I thought, I'm not being sort of a naysayer or uncelebratory. I'm very glad that the movies are being made, but I think we should also be frank about the atmosphere in which they are being made, and not say, well, woo-hoo, they're hugely popular pictures, because in the present atmosphere they're not. And that is very disappointing to me. The marketplace, and I'm using that horrible sort of cold term, because actually that's the way that people view these things, not the way you view them or I view them, but it's the way that the dimensions of the world or whatever view them. The marketplace seems to be much more interested in, rehashes of stuff. And I think there's something in what Mr. Kitamura did in a New Train, for instance, certainly what Mr. de Blasio did in Dread, that has a freshness to it. And I'm disappointed that the audience still wants Halloween 2. I mean, comment on that, Alan. I mean, for God's sake, we've known each other now coming up to 30 years, and we've seen this up and down and every which way. Doesn't it disappoint you a little bit that we're not seeing where are those fresh new voices? Where are the people who are doing the next generation?
Well, we are seeing some around. I mean, we're seeing quite a lot of movies at the moment that are really quite out there and up front. I mean, but I know what you mean. I feel like I'm reliving my youth again with all like the Prom Nights and the Halloween remake and all that stuff. All this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are hit and miss, aren't they? Some of them are good, some of them aren't. But I mean,
Well, I mean, I think you're right. We do see interesting offbeat stuff, but I don't think we're seeing it promoted aggressively the way that the remakes are. And somewhere down that long list of questions, there's going to be something about Hellraiser 1, I'm sure, in the remake of that. And, that has been through, I don't know, 3 sets of directors or 2 sets of directors or whatever. And, at one point I was told very firmly that the Hellraiser movies had nothing to do with sadomasochism. This came from Dimension, which suggested that nobody at Dimension had ever seen a Hellraiser movie. It was, there's the richness of what I think horror fiction can be and should be is not present in what we're being shown. I think it is present, curiously, in science fiction more than in I'm talking about District 9, for instance, than it is in horror. And I've always argued that horror had, unexplored depths. At Sitges, there was certainly some very cool offbeat movies that really supported that thesis. But are they going to be seen by a mainstream audience in America? No, not a chance. Not a chance.
I mean, in fact, you mentioned Sitges. We've just come back from the Sitges Fantasy Festival, which is in Spain. And Pascal Logier, who was the director of Martyrs, who was one of the directors who was going to do...
The first director who was going to do
Hellraiser, told me that Dimension told him that he could write the script, but he didn't have to include any Cenobites. And that was one of the reasons why he decided to sort of more or less wash his hands of it.
It's one of the, I won't say which of the folks at Dimension, but one of the folks at Dimension has never been able to say the word Cenobite. You can't actually pronounce it. It comes out all kind of Celobite or Cenobit or, Cenopod. That's indicative. This is, one of the lead guys over there. That's indicative of how interested they are in the actual mythology itself. One of the things I've always been interested in is the idea that you can create mythologies to sort of support these stories. And it's one of the things Del Toro, I think, who's a friend of both yours and mine, has brilliantly done over the years. And yet I don't see the support for that in amongst the reviewers. Let's start with those, for instance. I mean, I see it in the genre reviewers, the reviewers who are reviewing for genre magazines, but the mainstream press is as ignorant as it ever was about what the genre, the horror genre, what science fiction for that matter, or fantasy, what this material can do and be. There's a terrible ignorance, I think. And it is ignorance, it's willful ignorance, it's a kind of condescension, I think.
I mean, the industry has changed, the film industry, and I'm sure the publishing industry has changed so much since you started out in that. I mean, you would probably not be able to sort of make Hellraiser yourself today in this sort of climate.
I wouldn't be able to publish the books of blood, I wouldn't be able to make Hellraiser, absolutely right. The second publishers that my editor, my agent, who was my theatre agent, he wasn't looking after my plays, he wasn't looking after my books in time. He said, it didn't take me on to look after books, so I wasn't writing books at that time, but I had these short stories, and I said, Brian, how about, showing these to some publishers? And he said, well, they weren't to his taste at all, but he said he would try it. And the second publishers, who happened to be Sphere, took on 3 books, for the princely sum of £2,000 for all 3 books for world rights in perpetuity. But nevertheless, they bought them, they published them. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that would be a very easy thing to do now. I don't think you'd find the support for that kind of experiment, if you will. And not only that, but then go on to publish another 3 books. And I don't have a connection now with Sphere, and I don't know whether the people who initiated that deal are still there, but God bless them, because yes, they are. It is the gift that keeps on giving. Those books are still in